Namaste. Today, I would like to speak about what we call as a thought. Very simple, but it's difficult, I think, to define, expand and explain. So I shall try. A thought represents and expresses all that the brain and mind does. To me, the brain exists, the mind does not. Mind is merely the operating system, say like that of a computer. Brain is the hard disk, mind is the operating system, RAM is the memory, and the information that flows from the operating system, starting from its input, whereby the data that we put in and the output which comes out. Similarly, in the case of mind, we refer to that as thoughts. In short, it's the mental process. The mental process of the mind in an electromagnetic flow produced by the chemical activity occurring in the brain. So, brain is that organ and mind is the flow of energy, psychic energy, from various sections of the brain, through neurons, via neural pathways, deriving its input, producing its output, via thoughts. Main thing about thoughts is that we are not thoughts. Otherwise, we would not say, thoughts are mine. No, we are not thoughts. We always say, my thoughts. We'll never say, I am thoughts. I am, therefore I think. I am, therefore I think. So, I am independent from the thoughts. But then what happens? There is that distinct, defined thinking self which only thinks of the activity. Only thinks of the activity while thinking the activity going around in the environment and itself and within itself, but not on the nature of its thought. We never bother to think on the nature, or the context or the subject of our thoughts. We are only concerned with the content flowing in desires and emotions. We are not bothered about what the nature of the thought is, what the subject of the thought is, why has it come, how has it come, what is the reason. If we are angry, why are we having angry thoughts? If we are negative, why are the negative thoughts there, etc., etc. We do not delve deeper down into thoughts. We just think superficially. So what happens? Thoughts emerge from ideas, from feelings, turning into beliefs, forming our opinions, and gradually becoming our faith on what we believe upon. And they are the source behind our language, as to how we express language, churning it in our mind through thoughts. And also, I would say, thoughts are selfish, very selfish. It only thinks about me and mine. And what do? They combine knowledge with experiences and memory, collecting the past information, analyzing it through intellect, and expressing its output to further experience and infer. That's what thought is. Then we have the second stage of thought. This stage is the movement of psychic energy, the movement of thoughts. Its characteristics while it moves, it's got very distinct characteristics. First is, it moves in duality. We can only think in duality. And we can only think about the past. From the past, it collects information from the memory and projects that into the future. And that too in duality. Duality meaning, we cannot think much about the day without relating it to night. Neither male to female, nor God to devil, nor positive to negative, nor happiness to sadness, truth to lie. So thoughts revolves around duality. Duality. And of the past. Churning the past, accumulating fresh knowledge and projecting that into the future. While the time also we are projecting knowledge, it is going into the past, not in the present moment. The present moment keeps on shifting to the past, and the future is the future present yet to come. Then the third characteristic, besides thoughts being of the past and of duality, the third characteristic is, as explained also by second law of thermodynamics, that it moves in entropy. Energy moves in entropy, randomly and recklessly. Randomly and recklessly. And that is how we see thoughts moving randomly, recklessly, multitasking into this or that, here and there, and not being able to concentrate dynamically by focusing our mind onto one aspect at a time. We do multiple things. We do multiple things. Then we have, in this movement of thoughts, that it reinforces a very strong separation between us and the environment. Identifying and attaching for its me and mine, it separates us. Thoughts have a tendency to segregate everything. Then what we have is, it is limited in space, time and causation. Space, time and causation. A cause and effect principle is applied. Every action has a reaction. Every action in our mind and thoughts has a reaction in thoughts. And to top it all, it only reacts from its emotions. Thoughts are always reactive, and reactive is why? Because it's from the past. It reacts. It cannot proact. It reacts. And then another strong characterization aspect of thoughts is, which is different from all other living creatures, like a computer also, you have to feed in the data from outside for its input to take out the output. Same is the case with thoughts. The senses, thoughts make the senses, it makes the sense out of sensory organs. That's what thoughts are. It makes some sense out of sensory organs by its analyzing nature. But these senses are all mechanical. Eyes are mechanical. Periscope, like a periscope or a telescope or a microscope. And same are the other senses. Sensory organs like the ears, nose, etc. So, it requires a conscious principle which is very high in human beings as compared to other living creatures. Very high. It has the highest intensity of conscious principle, which again gets segregated by thoughts into conscious, subconscious and unconscious via cognition. When the mind is tangible, when the mind is cognizing and it is going, my thoughts are going in auto mode. Why in auto mode? The mind does not prefer to go into the conscious mode. It likes it best in auto mode. An uncontrollable, phenomenal machine. Phenomenal. Wanting its thoughts to go in auto mode, meaning once you have learned how to walk, drive, swim, cycle, or going to your office consciously the first time, you do not require your conscious aspect to tell you how and where to go. You just go subconsciously in auto mode and you know exactly when to brake, where the red lights are, etc., etc. So, conscious, subconscious and unconscious. Unconscious in auto mode. So, these are the aspects which makes it move. Now, what happens? According to a neuroscientist of today, they claim that over 98% of the mind, the thoughts are working in a subconscious level. Subconscious level, meaning in auto mode, meaning randomly and recklessly multitasking into this or that here and there and not being conscious about what it is doing in an unconscious manner. Dangerous. And that is why there is so much of an imbalance. That is why we see the material so high, where the human being keeps on accumulating materialism, and thoughts also are a material aspect of our mind, a material aspect where we only know how to accumulate. With the result, 80% of our mind is negative, with contempt, jealousy, greed, lust, anger, insecurity, fear, conflict, you name it. It's an endless negative traits that we have in our thoughts most of the time. To the extent we are not happy seeing somebody else happy. To the extent we are dissatisfied when satisfied. We want more. So there's a drastic imbalance. All because the thinking self knows quite a lot about its body, somewhat about its mind, and zero about its third realm, the soul. Very liberally we use body, mind and soul. We do not know anything about it. To improvise on our thoughts, to improvise on our mind. Now let's go on to the third stage. How to improvise our thoughts. Improvise our thoughts has been very well given in the subject of meditation. Meditation means silencing the mind. Whether we can do it for a few minutes or slightly longer, because as long as we are awake and alive, as long as we are conscious, consciousness is that wakefulness which makes us awake and alive. And the conscious and the subconscious are active at that time. Of course, the mind is unconscious when either we are asleep or we are drunk or we are drugged, but that is not a part of our discussion. So, the mind in meditation, it cannot be held for long. So there are 3-4 different types of meditation. We have japa, mantra, or what we call as chanting. That is repetition of a word. It can be any word, any word. Nam me yo, renge kyo, go on chanting, and it distracts the mind. It is supposed to stabilize the mind. It is supposed to silence the other parts of the mind. I do not know whether it's there or not, because I'm not much used to chanting. Chanting, yes, if you're chanting a prayer every day through memory, then your mind and thoughts are somewhere else while you are reciting that prayer. So that is also hardly of any use. Let's go down to the next. Transcendental meditation. That is also just for 15 minutes or half an hour. Thinking that you have silenced the mind, sorry, it's very, very difficult to silence the mind, even while doing transcendental meditation. Of course, these two are definitely helpful and beneficial to the body and the mind. It relaxes the mind and the body. Certain enzymes like telomerase are released while at meditation, which is good for longevity. And your BP goes down and things like that. But if you come to the improvising part, if you come to the spiritual part, there we have to learn the art of how to go from lower consciousness to higher consciousness. That is what is meant by being spiritual. How to go from the lower to the higher consciousness. How to reduce the degree of a subconscious which is so high up to 98%, creating that imbalance so that we can enter into a higher realm, higher consciousness, where we are more focused on what we are doing, where we know exactly what we are acting or thinking upon. And we here, human beings, have been gifted with this special energy, absolute non-dual energy called awareness to its highest extent, which is our beingness. Our being is temporary. Body and brain, along with the mind and its consciousness. Consciousness is attached to mind. Consciousness is attached to thought. You cannot be conscious unless you have thoughts of this or that. It becomes conscious either of hot or it becomes conscious either of cold. So consciousness is a part and a construct of the mind. And we call it as self-consciousness. In lower consciousness, it is referred to as ego consciousness. And when it goes higher, then it is soulful or pure consciousness. We are going towards the core. Body is the gross energy, mind is subtle energy, and what we have in the core is the soul. The individualized soul, the true self, above the thinking self. It is the silent zone of the mind. By the spiritualist, it is considered as the superconscious section of the mind. Superconscious, where the non-dual awareness resides, the cosmic energy resides, where the mind is connected from the personal level to the transpersonal level. Transpersonal level is the metaphysical realm, is the cosmic energy. How the cosmic energy enters and exits through the soul. And that's what we call as the spirit. As the spirit. Now, in order to become conscious, like you switch on a computer, awareness switches on the mind. It is the trigger of the mind. The moment the mind is alert, the mind becomes aware. And after that, if the mind is attentive, it becomes conscious. Meaning, awareness is primordial, consciousness is secondary. Meaning, first you have to become aware, then only the mind becomes conscious. Awareness is independent. It is neither aware of its own self, but it has the ability, when it vibrates inside the mind, this aware conscious energy for which we are called, thou art that, tattvam asi, I am that aware conscious energy, which makes the mind and the thoughts move. It is responsible to make the mind aware and after that conscious. So, we have to see now, how do we go to higher consciousness? So here comes the third state of meditation. It is called meditative awareness. Existentially, when the mind is existential from one moment to the next, not concerned with space, time, or cause and effect. it is spontaneous, it is proactive, it is in the present moment, because awareness is now, pure awareness is now taken over the mind. This happens in two different stages. One is spontaneous awareness, where say a scientist has been working on some formula or something for a number of years and he's not been able to get the answer. And one fine day, bingo, I've got it. Eureka! It's called creative energy. The creativity which culminates in spontaneity. You spontaneously get in a jolt the answer which you have been seeking, and the cosmic energy gives in to you. Okay, take it. The supreme energy, the supreme ability of the cosmic energy, which the ancient sages referred to as Para Brahman. Brahman was the energy, and Para Brahman is that supreme ability of the energy to make plants aware, animals aware, and the human beings aware to the maximum in its beingness, because it is because of this beingness, because of this awareness, that God exists, the universe exists, we exist, everything, the environment exists. It is because awareness unravels and unfolds that. If that awareness was not there, nothing would have been there. So, it is that non-dual energy, that awareness, which makes the mind aware, which makes the mind conscious. And if we, in meditative awareness, train our mind, exercise our mind to be constantly aware of every single thought which goes through our mind, we are aware of it, we are looking out of it, looking into it, which is nothing involved with the experiencing. Experiencing, effort in experiencing is by the cognitive mind. This is just purely watching and witnessing through the witnessing consciousness which is called the soul, which is uninvolved and uninfected by what is happening to the mind. It is just watching and witnessing and silently checking and guiding the mind. The moment it crosses a limit, don't do it. You may land into trouble. It's constantly warning, but we don't listen because our desires and emotions and our selfishness is too strong. But there is that divine sitting inside, silently, which needs to be awakened. That is why the soul, we say, it needs to be awakened. It cannot be activated. It can be only awakened. The mind needs to be activated. So, meditative awareness from one moment to the next is watching the mind, watching the movement of the mind, how it performs, how it is expressing, how it is behaving from one moment to the next. And if you can do that, you'll enter into higher consciousness. You'll always be alert. Always be alert. By default or by intention, most successful people are very alert. Very alert. And that is how success enters. Because your mind is centered, your mind is focused, your mind is attuned towards higher consciousness. Thank you for listening. Namaste.